Na 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 na. I have so many Star Wars things, I think I have a little bit of a problem. Hey y'all, I'm Madeline Monahan, but you can call me Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm gonna do something fun. Today I'm gonna be playing around with paradigms and screenplay paradigms, to be exact. So the inspiration for this little experiment actually comes from this book here, Sid Field's screenplay. This is my go-to screenplay advice, help, exercise book. It's got just all sorts of examples, activities, really good explanations. It really helps kind of break down the fundamentals of writing a screenplay. One of the activities that he puts in this is called a paradigm. And for those of you who write screenplays, I'm sure you already know what it is, but I will try and explain it for those who may not know. So this is a paradigm. So basically the way a film works is that it's broken down into 3 acts, you know, much like a novel is. So you have Act 1, which is your setup, Act 2, which is your confrontation, Act 3, which is your resolution. And then within each of those acts, you have different moments. So for example, in your setup you would have your enticing incident, which is basically your hook. It's the thing that's supposed to rope your audience into your story. And at the end of Act 1, you have your plot point. And this is a decisive moment which spurs your main character into Act 2. So it's the end of the setup and it's the thing that leads to the confrontation of the story. And then of course you have your midpoint, which is kind of the moment where things are starting to kind of come to a head. It's kind of the biggest turning point, or it can be the biggest turning point for your character. Your midpoint is just supposed to be almost like a catalyst for your story, like it sets the tone for how the rest of the thing is gonna go. And then at the end of Act 2, you have your plot point 2, which then again spurs your main character into Act 3. And this is where the final showdown happens. You have your climax, you have your final battle, you have, you know, all the, I know Save the Cat calls it the darkest moment. All of this happens in Act 3, and then of course it ends. One of the things that I used to love to do was watch movies and then identify the different categories and the different topics, and I'd write them down. But today I'm not going to be doing a movie that has already been done. I'm going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to adapt, and I use the word adapt lightly because I have not actually written this, but I'm going to adapt one of my stories for the paradigm. So this is my handy dandy notebook. I have every project that I am working on right now. As you can see, it's a little bit it's a little bit crazy. This is where my stories get started. The initial idea will get written down in this, and then I'll expand on it a little bit, I'll kind of map it out a little bit, and then I'll move on to my computer and have it elaborated on a little bit more there. The story that I'm going to be adapting today, I call Project Hollywood, which I think is appropriate, adapting Project Hollywood for a screenplay, let's be real. Project Hollywood is actually an idea that I've gone back and forth on a lot. Like, I can never decide if I want it to be a novel, if I want it to be a screenplay, if I want it to be both. You know, so there's been a lot of back and forth with it. And so I think this will be a really fun experiment to see if screenplay is actually the format I want it to be in. And if I can make it into an interesting screenplay. I'm gonna just take everything that I've plotted for Project Hollywood and I'm going to turn it into a paradigm. So, let's get started. I'm excited. Let's go. Because I'm weird, I'm actually not gonna go sit up at my desk today. As you can see, it's a little bit of a mess. A little bit. So I'm gonna sit on the floor. Mostly because I actually like sitting on the floor. For some reason, I just feel very at home on the floor, so that's how it's gonna go today. Before I get started, I wanted to kind of clue you guys in a little bit to what Project Hollywood is about. Basically, it's about these two young women. One is kind of from Nowheresville, middle USA, and the other one is from London. And they sort of, by chance, end up both getting work at this production company. I have yet to decide on if I want it to be a fictional one or a real one. We're still working on that. But one gets a job as a writer for this TV series, and the other one gets a reoccurring role that becomes a starring role. And kind of as luck would have it, they're thrown into an apartment together. Show a story of two young women who are kind of thrown into a world that they want to be in, but a world that they know can be very unforgiving. And kind of show how they each go through that. As you would expect, the place we're going to start is our Act 1. And we're going to start right up here in this little area. So this is the setup. So this is where you first meet your main character, or your main villain, or your main whoever. You know, this is sort of the moment, the scene that gets the ball rolling for the rest of the movie. And so I'm gonna write it down. I'm using Katie Tastic's 3-act 9-block 27 chapter setup, and it's interesting because it's like when you use things like that, it's like your enticing incident happens like right then and there. Like it's the second thing that happens. And yeah, I don't think that's not, I don't know if that's necessarily how it works with a movie. We're gonna try this. That's the whole point of this, is we're just gonna try and see if it translates. Let's get going. Let's go. I'm like 2 sentences into translating this from like a novel format to a screenplay format, and I already had to change something in order to feel like it made more sense. And that's what I think is interesting when you think about adaptations, is that it's really easy to forget how much thought has to go into it in order for it to feel like it can come off as a cohesive story in a different medium. And it's so funny to watch like all these adaptations of books and shows and think that somewhere along the way they just gave up. I'm looking at you, Shyamalan. That movie's in my movie box somewhere. I'm gonna have to watch that at some point. Alright, so I just finished Act 1. So there's my little setup, my enticing incident, and then the plot point. Climaxes are very, for me at least, probably doesn't apply to many people, but hello. But climaxes to me are harder to write when there's not like a big battle. Like, does that make sense? Like if there's not some like final confrontation between a good guy and a bad guy, because in this story there is no one, you know, there's no bad guy, and there's no fist fight, and there's no gunfight, there's no lightsaber duels, you know, so trying to figure out what exactly the climax really is and trying to think of a way to present it in which it's exciting. It's very different. It's very outside the box for me, which is kind of fun. I kind of like that. This position is very uncomfortable though, so I'm gonna go. So now I'm moving on to the third and final act. Cool. The sun is killing me. Woo. So here we have the final product. That was actually both easier and harder than I thought it was going to be. Because I kind of had parts of it already like visually, I thought that it would be a lot easier to write it down, to translate it, and it ended up kind of taking more time than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be, you know, super easy, but I did it. The dreaded climax is done. I still don't feel that confident about it being a climax. I think in terms of like a novel, this climax would make a little bit more sense, but in terms of like a film, I'm still a little bit iffy about it. But this is also a genre that's way out of my comfort zone. So like I said, I am very much an action-y adventure person. So things like slice of life and drama, romantic stuff, those kinds of genres I'm not really that comfortable with, and I would say that this is kind of a slice of life drama, I would say, and I'm just not... Someone's mowing the lawn. Who's mowing the lawn? Quit interrupting my video! I think just because it's not in my comfort zone that it feels weird to me, but I actually think that this is a story that would make more sense to see as a movie, mostly because, you know, it's a movie about two people who are in the movie industry. I think that the takeaway from this is that I will be writing Project Hollywood as a screenplay. Granted, it'll probably go through like 20 million revisions, but that's what they're supposed to do. I would definitely use this. And this was a good idea. Give myself a pat on the back, wait for the lighting to come back because the sun's coming in. So thank you all so much for watching. I had a lot of fun doing this. I have a lot of fun just anything movie, screenplay related. If y'all haven't, I highly recommend checking out Sid Field's screenplay. There are a lot of really good screenplay books in the world. I'm not saying this is the definitive one, I'm just saying if you haven't, check it out, please do. It is broken down in a way that's very easy to understand. There's a lot of really fun exercises in it. There's a lot of really fun tricks and tips that he has. There you go. That is my paradigm. You can't see it because of the sun, but that is my paradigm. This is the page it came from, and I will see you guys, if my thing focuses, and I will see you guys in my next video. Thank y'all so much for watching. I'll see you later. Bye. Auf Wiedersehen and all that.